Good morning and welcome to Week 15 of the NFL season and the Football Diehards DFS show with the popular Jason Brady and myself, Emil Kadlec, the old man of fantasy. How's it going, Brady?
It's going pretty good. I'm ready to make money on this Sunday.
Yeah, it should be fun. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to go through some notes here, news and notes. A lot of stuff going on. First off, the people that are out this week is Kyle Rudolph with Minnesota. Of course, that means Irv Smith gets a plus there. Kenny Golladay again out with Detroit. Michael Thomas, he's out with New Orleans. Zane Gonzalez is still out with Arizona. Deebo Samuels, I think he's out the rest of the year now. Of course, that's a big plus to Braden Aiyuk. I'm sure we'll talk about him later in the show. Washington, Alex Smith is supposedly out. So Dwayne Haskins is going to start again. That'll be interesting. Julio Jones again out for Atlanta. Damian Harris is out for New England. And Myles Gaskin for Miami is on the COVID list, so he's out. Doubtful is Antonio Gibson, which gives a plus to Barber and McKissick. Expected to play today is New York Giants' Evan Ingram, tight end, and that's a Sunday night game. Matthew Stafford's expected to play. Ezekiel Elliott expected to play. And James White is also expected to play, and with Damon Harris out, that may be important. Chase Edmonds is also expected to play. It's an afternoon game, so you're not going to get news early on that one. And Devontae Parker is also expected to play, and I'm pretty sure that's an early game. Questionable for today, Duke Johnson, and I think David Johnson's back, so that's a big thing for, I guess it helps David Johnson. I don't know if it's big, but anyway, it's important, I guess. Kissick for Miami and Salvin Ahmed for Miami are questionable, and that's an early game, so we'll have info on that at footballdires.com to know whether they start before you fix your lineups. Not expected to play is Hakeem Grant for Miami, and Daniel Jones, quarterback for the Giants, is expected to be out. Colt McCoy is expected to start. Man, that took a while. I'm not good at reading those things. So let's start with the quarterbacks.
Yep, let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is going to be Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia going against the Arizona Cardinals. He is 5,900, and he's good matchup here against Arizona. Lots of rushing yard upside. He did have 16 rushing attempts last week, so yeah, I really like Hurts here. I think that, and especially in cash, I think it's like a must play for me. You get that rushing yard upside, you get that rushing yard floor, and he looked really good for his first ever career start. So I'm going right back to him here. I think he's still way too cheap at 5,900, and if he keeps playing like this, he's not going to be priced that low for long.
Yeah, that's a heck of a number. He's the sixth most owned quarterback at basically 7%. Yeah, he did look good. He really did look good. I like what I saw at Arizona. I don't know if it's a very imposing defense, so that is a very intriguing thing. 9%. He's the 6 month owned quarterback, so people are catching on a little bit, despite the risk that you've got a rookie starting at quarterback, which I guess in 2020 is becoming a more regular thing. I guess college programs are becoming better and better at preparing quarterbacks for the NFL.
Yeah.
All right, what's next? Oh, looks like we lost him. He's probably going back in, so it may take a minute or two. Hopefully he'll be back quickly here. But Hurst is a good idea there at 9%. Salary's $5,900. Nothing wrong with that. That's a fantastic number. I just worry a little bit about him. Hello. Oh, you there? Yeah, looks like he's back.
Hello?
Hello, how you doing? Can you hear me?
No, one second.
He's still clicking his buttons. Technical difficulties. Looks like he's going out and he's coming back in, so that'll take another 5 or 10 seconds. I apologize for that. And just quickly going over some of these other quarterbacks while we wait for Brady to come back in. Lamar Jackson's actually the number 1 owned quarterback this week at 11%, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And it looks like he's coming back in the room. He's probably having to check his mic now.
Hello?
You're there.
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're all good. All right, so we're done with Jalen Hurts. And why don't we go on to your next quarterback?
All right, sounds good. So the next one, Tom Brady for Tampa Bay going against Atlanta here, 6,600. He's averaging 21.4 DraftKings points. And I had him last week. I thought he'd do a lot better, but he has another opportunity here. And I think that bad performance could lower his ownership. And yeah, like I said, I'm going right back here against the Atlanta passing defense, which I do like to attack. 6,600. I like the stacking options. So yeah, I'm going to Tom Brady here at 6,600.
And you are right. His ownership is at 5.4%. I think people got a little bit concerned about him. It's a pretty good comeback. It's a road game, but it's at Atlanta, and Atlanta's played better defense. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay can take advantage of this team. And who knows, maybe the emotion of that team is starting to get lower and lower. Had a tough loss last week, where Ryan threw a bad pass and they ended up losing on a long field. He was very frustrated about that. But yeah, I think that's a good start. 5.4% owned.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so Excellent. This one's interesting. I'm curious to hear the ownership of this one. It's going to be Lamar Jackson for Baltimore going against Jacksonville here. 7,500, averaging 22.8 DraftKings points. And it looks like he's finally getting it together as of late, doing what we all thought he would do earlier in the season. And a very good matchup here against the Jaguars. He has that huge rushing yard upside. So, yeah, I mean, this is something I expected, throughout the whole season. But, he had a pretty rough season, honestly. But it looks like the past couple of weeks he's starting to finally get it together, starting to finally run the ball. So I think at 7,500, I think he has a ton of upside here. But I'm curious to hear the ownership. Hopefully he's not crazy high owned because I really like this play this week.
He's crazy high owned. He's number one quarterback owned. It's 11%, but usually quarterbacks are more distributed, so that's pretty high. I mean, that was probably one of the best games I've watched all year, at least in my memory, and I'm kind of old. I couldn't believe that game. I just couldn't believe that. It was great. It was dramatic too, with him going to the locker room and then rushing back in and throwing that pass to Hollywood Brown. That was hilarious. But yeah, he's hot.
Oh yeah.
So 11%. You're going to have to deal with that ownership where in your GPP games.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of upside in that. So hopefully he keeps it going because I'm on him today. So hopefully he goes
roll with
good.
Him.
Yep.
Excellent.
All right, and then the last person I want to talk about is going to be Ryan Tannehill going against Detroit, 6,700, averaging 21.4 DraftKings points. And I think it's like an interesting way to get off the Derrick Henry chalk. I'm assuming Derrick Henry is going to be one of the highest owned running backs, if not the highest owned running back. So another way to attack that would be attacking the passing game for Tennessee. Tannehill, lots of great stacking options. Brown, Davis. So yeah, I think Tannehill at 6,700 should be lowish owned, and I think there's a ton of upside against the Detroit defense.
Well, he's the third most owned quarterback at 9.4%, so not that low owned. I think people are on to that.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, it looks
and he
like
can have games. Last year, about this time, they were running Henry a lot, and Ryan Townhill was scoring points. So the run was supporting the passing game for some crazy way. So that's not a surprise that you like him. Unfortunately, he's 9.4% owned. He's the third most owned quarterback. So that's the unfortunate part of that.
Yeah, I like it.
6,700 salary is very nice.
Yes. Was there any other quarterback you wanted to talk about? Those are my main four.
Well, here's a crazy idea for GPP contrarian. Oh, I almost don't want to say this. Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
2.8%, $6,100. I don't know. He's a scary guy because he is playing at home. It is against Chicago. He is a big home quarterback. He really does score his points at home and has poor games on the road. So, again, when you're looking at GPP, obviously you're looking at guys who aren't very owned and are somewhat risky, and Kirk Cousins is perfect for that role. So, anyway, I thought I'd throw his name in there.
I like it.
Cool.
All right, so
lone guy, 2.8%.
Yeah, that's what I like about the most. And he's been playing good this year, so.
He's had some hot games. He's had some big games. He's all over the place, but he's had some big games, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So moving into the running backs here, start up top with Derrick Henry for Tennessee going against Detroit here. 9,500, 22.2 DraftKings points on average here. And yeah, really great matchup here for Derrick Henry against one of the worst, if not the worst, run defense in the league. And what you get with Henry is a very high ceiling. You don't really get the best floor in the world. If he goes out there, he can get 30 rushing attempts for 100 yards, no touchdowns, no receptions. He could have a bad game, but what I like playing Henry is when his team has the lead. You don't want to play Henry when they're coming from behind. That means they're not going to use him much. If they get out front, they're going to run the ball with him continuously. So, especially against Detroit here, they're decent-sized favorites. I do think they'll get out ahead. I do think they'll run the ball a ton and hopefully find the end zone a ton because Detroit's run defense is very, very bad. So I'm all over Henry, but I'm assuming everybody else is as well, and I'm assuming he's the number one owned running back.
He's the number two owned, but obviously at 25.6% owned is a big number. So super chalk, but obviously he's panned out. And he could very well pan out today. He's been running the ball really well. This is this classic like last year as we just talked. So, yeah, that's an interesting play, $9,500 salary.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot, but he could pay it off. He really could. All right, so getting into the next play here. And, Cam Akers going against the Jets here, 6,600, averaging 8.7 DraftKings points. And, I love the matchup and the game script here. I feel like the game script is going to be very important. They're huge favorites. Last time I checked, it was 17 points, something like that. And, they should get out ahead and run the ball. And, what I noticed is when the Rams get out ahead, they tend to, play conservative and run the ball a lot. They don't really go out there and pass a ton. So if they get out ahead, I feel like Akers will get a ton of opportunity. And he's been getting a ton of opportunity as late. He's doing, what I thought he would do at the beginning of the season. He's starting to do that now. He had, 30 touches last game. So hopefully he keeps that going at 6,600. If he's getting 30 touches, or at least 20, I'd be happy with that. So I like Cam Akers a ton here.
Yeah, he has to digress a little from last week. 29 rushes, 171 yards, 3 targets, 2 catches, 23 yards. He didn't even score a touchdown, scored 21 fantasy points under most fantasy scoring. Let me go look at his ownership percentage. 15.6% owned, number 6 owned running back. So, he's going to be somewhat chalky. You got to expect that. It was so exciting to see him because I've drafted him in a lot of leagues. And he got hurt and whatnot, but he definitely looked good. And I like what you say. If the Rams can get ahead, they're going to run this guy. I don't know if they can get ahead, whether they're playing the Jets this week. So in general, they've had troubles, but that should be a big opportunity for Cam Akers. Yeah, that's a hot button right there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, so this next guy is going to be interesting. I have a feeling he's going to be very high owned, and it's going to be Alvin Kamara going against the Chiefs here, 7,400, and he's averaging 23.6 DraftKings points. And finally get to talk about Kamara. I haven't talked about him for a couple weeks now. That's because Taysom Hill. But now that Drew Brees is back, he's starting. Alvin Kamara should go back to Drew Brees passing him the ball, having that pass catching upside, and also with that, Michael Thomas isn't expected to play or he's out. So I think that he's going to get even more receptions here. And at 7,400, that's actually really cheap for Alvin Kamara with Drew Brees playing. But like I said, with Taysom Hill playing, it kind of ruins the upside a little bit. But now that Brees is back, I think there's a ton of upside here with Kamara.
Yeah, you said it all right. Number 1 owned running back, 28.8%. This is, it's going to be chalk, but this is a chalk you're going to probably want to eat. What a great opportunity, like you said, at $7,400 this week. It's bound to go up. And with Michael Thomas out, Breeze is back. The only worry I have, a little worry, is, Breeze had how many, double-digit cracked or broken ribs? Is he really that healthy right now, or are they just trying to get him back to get him ready for the playoffs? But they obviously would like to keep that number one. I don't know if they have the number one position. I think they lost it to Green Bay last night. But is Tyson Hill gonna come in and play a little more than he usually did when Breeze was number one? And is that son of a gun gonna go in at the goal line? That worries me a little bit. But I truly think that Alvin Kamara is a smart cash game this week. He's hard to stay away from. And we could get burned a little bit by Tyson, but I don't think so. I think Kamara is the guy to play this week.
Yes, I like it. All right, so this play is really interesting. It's going to be Leonard Fournette going against Atlanta here. 4,500, averaging 10.4 DraftKings points. So Ronald Jones, I believe, is out, giving Fournette a big opportunity here against Atlanta's run defense is decent, but Atlanta's defense in general is not that great. I feel like Fournette has some good pass-catching upside, and at 4,500, if he gets a solid roll here, I think he could be pretty solid. Like, that seems like he doesn't really need much to hit value there at 4,500. So I like Fournette here as kind of like a value play. Cinch Jones, I believe, is out.
Yeah, I think he's out too. I didn't mention that earlier with the broken finger. He's the fourth most owned running back, 16%. So everybody's sitting on it. It's ironic because this guy was a healthy scratch last week. And now he's the fourth most owned. It just shows you from week to week what will happen in fantasy football, including DFS. He can play. He can do well. $4,500 against Atlanta. Wow. There's another guy who's hard to stay away from this week in DFS. That's incredible. It's so funny to be thinking about starting a guy who was benched last week, essentially.
That's crazy, yeah.
Things change.
Exactly, but you got to take advantage of them. So
yeah, you do. That's for sure.
All right, so the next one here, and Jonathan Taylor going against Houston, 7,200, and he's been getting some solid volume as of late. Finally getting the volume I kind of expected him to be getting throughout the year, and a really good matchup here against a very poor Houston run defense. I think there's a lot of upside. He went absolutely off last week. They did price his drafting salary up from like $1,000 here, but rightfully so. The matchup's fantastic. I like the game script here as well, and hopefully they give him the volume he's been getting because he should have a very, very good game if so.
Yeah, he's coming around, and Indianapolis is coming around. It really looks good, and they're playing the helpless Houston Texans. He's the third most owned running back, 17.9%, so he's going to be chalky. You expect that, but man, he's hot, and the matchup's fantastic. So his salary's at $7,200. You said it bumped up a bit from last week.
Oh yeah,
but you got to expect that. Yeah, that's a very intriguing play right there.
Yes. So this next one's kind of intriguing. I'm curious to hear the ownership on Dalvin Cook here. 9,000, averaging 26.5 DraftKings points going against Chicago. So, I mean, not the best matchup in the world. Pretty tough matchup, but I'm not really scared of the Chicago defense, honestly. And it is a lower owned pivot off of Derrick Henry. Everybody's going to go to Derrick Henry because obviously he has the better matchup. He's been playing very, very well. But Dalvin Cook still had a pretty solid game last week with a tough matchup. And another tough matchup here, but I feel like he has that upside. And if he's lower owned, that's very, very intriguing because, I think he has the same upside as Derrick Henry, probably at, I'm guessing, like half the ownership, something like that.
Yeah, fifth most owned running back at 15.6%, which is not quite half, but it's definitely down from the 25% for Henry. So, yeah, he's still semi-chalky, but he is down a little bit. Yeah, Chicago's a sneaky defense. They are playing in Minnesota, which helps. But, I talked about Kirk Cousins. If they're going to throw the ball, they obviously can throw it to Cook, too. So that could actually put a little frosting on the cake for Dalvin Cook to be able to pay out on that $9,000 salary.
Yep. Yeah, good point there. I mean, if he's going to be able to catch the ball, we don't really see Derrick Henry do that. I mean, maybe a couple receptions here and there, but Dalvin Cook can go out there and catch the ball.
Excellent.
All right, so the last one I want to talk about is going to be David Johnson going against the Colts here, 5,100, averaging 11.8 DraftKings points. And Duke Johnson is out, right?
Yeah, isn't that what I said? You think I could remember what I said?
That's what I thought. But
Yeah.
I think he's out, so he should be able to get a ton of opportunity here. When Johnson came back last week, he was kind of splitting snaps with Duke Johnson there, but he should be getting the majority of the snaps in at 5,100.
Duke is
questionable,
so you have to watch that one. But still,
Okay.
David Johnson's doesn't matter if David Johnson's healthy. I don't think it matters whether Duke's in or out. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Especially if Duke is out, he's going to get even more volume. But yeah, like you mentioned, even if Duke plays, he's still going to get his. But I'd like Duke to be out so he can get as much volume as possible at 5,100. I like it a lot.
He's 2% owned, so David Johnson is way down the list, and definitely a GPP ownership number right there at 2%. So good opportunity. Yeah. Indianapolis, they've been a good defense. A little bit less than they were before. Of course, Duke can catch the ball too. It's at Indianapolis. But yeah, that's an excellent play. Love the low percentage there of ownership.
Yeah, I like it. Was there anybody else you wanted to throw out?
Yeah. What do you think about DeAndre Swift this week? He was sick last week. We've kind of forgotten about him. Right now he's owned at 3%, $6,400 salary. You have any feel for Swift this week?
Yeah, we talked about him last week, and he got 10 carries. He did score a touchdown, though, which was nice, but I'm kind of curious to see if they'll get him back into that role of, just getting more carries. I like it. I liked it last week. I like it this week, but what I'm worried about is them kind of limiting him. And it looked like at first, he was starting to get, a ton of carries, but last week was kind of I don't know. Hopefully they get him going here.
The question we have that we don't necessarily have an answer is, he was ill during the week. Was he limited last week because of that? And if so, he may be a sneaky GPP play at 3% ownership. But I don't know if we really have we don't really know that. We're going to have to make an assumption on that and either go with it or not go with it. But he's obviously he's a rookie. It's over for him, new coaching staff. If this guy is feeling better and healthy, there's a chance he may get some more targets and touches this week at Tennessee, which always scares me. I don't know why, but Tennessee's defense has not played well. I guess think a little too far behind, but could be an opportunity for Swift to make good on $6,400 salary.
Yeah, I definitely like that.
So that's the only other. Let me look here. Yeah, I think that's the only other running back that I was curious with that you didn't hit already.
Sweet, yeah, I like it one. All right, cool. So getting into the wide receivers here. And this is probably my favorite wide receiver play on the slate. It's going to be Brandon Aiyuk going against Dallas here, 6,300, averaging 16.4 DraftKings points. And he's been getting a ton of targets as of late, 16 targets last week, going against the poor Dallas secondary, and 6,300. It just seems way too cheap here for Aiyuk. So I'm assuming he's going to be so high owned, but I'm going to eat the chalk and have a ton of him here because I like the spot for him.
Yeah, 7th owned wide receiver this week, 12.4%. So he's high. He could be higher. Like you said, perfect opportunity for him with Debo out. I think Debo's out the rest of the year at Dallas. Oh, man. I mean, great opportunity for this guy. I got to figure out how many lineups I want to sneak him into, but that's $6,300. That's not bad either. So, yeah, this guy's got to be getting more, I don't know if he's going to get that many targets. 16 targets last week is insane, but definitely he's an opportunity this week. And, yeah, he's going to be chalky with the great week he had last week.
Oh, yes. All right, so the next one here, Calvin Ridley going against Tampa Bay, 8,200, averaging 19.9 DraftKings points. So Julio Jones is out, giving Ridley even more opportunity here. And this isn't the best matchup in the world. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers passing defense has been struggling as of late. So, yeah, I think Ridley could get something going. He's going to get a ton of targets with no Julio. Even with Julio playing, he's still going to get a ton of targets. So, I actually think Ridley is a very, very good tournament option at 8,200 with a lot of upside.
Yeah, love this kid. Really's playing well. Has had the injury problems. Like you said, Tampa Bay's not the greatest opponent. It is at home against Atlanta. 8% owned, so he's down a little bit with all these other great plays. But I like him. I'm going to try and get him in a few lineups myself. So I wish he wasn't playing Tampa Bay, but I still kind of like this. This guy's got great upside. So tempting play.
Oh, yes. Yes. So the next one here, we have Marvin Jones Jr. going against Tennessee, 5,700, averaging 12.4 DraftKings points. So Galladay is out, and Marvin Jones just seems way too cheap here at 5,700. I think there's some really good upside, especially in a game like this where I do think it's going to score very, very highly. So Marvin Jones, he should be that number one target, for Stafford there. So 5,700 is not bad.
Yeah, he's way down the list. He's at 3% ownership. So despite Galladay being out again, now Matthew Stafford's supposed to play. He's had the rib issue. That could backfire. He could leave before the finish of the game. But Daniel, whatever his last name is, he's a reliable backup quarterback. So even if Stafford goes out at some point in the game, I think that you're still covered by the backup guy who's a capable player at quarterback. So Marvin Jones, 3% owned, $5,700. That's very tempting.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And this next one's really interesting. I'm curious to hear the ownership of it because I like this play a lot. It's Terry McLaurin going against Seattle here, and Seattle has given up the most DraftKings points to opposing wide receivers. McLaurin is 6,600, averaging 15.5 DraftKings points. And what I like about this play is he struggled the last 2 weeks, but he's played some really good defenses the past 2 weeks as well. I believe Pittsburgh and the 49ers. And then now like a really, really good matchup against one of the worst, if not the worst, passing defense in the league, at least from a DraftKings standpoint. So, yeah, I'm all over McLaurin here, 6,600. He's going to get a ton of volume. They throw him the ball all the time, and the matchups here should be a decent high total as well. So give me McLaurin at 6,600.
8.3% owned for Terry McLaurin. Not bad, really, considering who he is.
Yeah.
Alex Smith is not expected. There's either not expected or he's out. I can't remember. So, you're going to get the Hawkins character in there, and who actually didn't play too bad at quarterback last week. I think is Terry McLaurin quarterback proof. He may be quarterback proof, but it still could hurt him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But he's such a talent, and like you said, they're at home against Seattle, so $6,600. That's a nice, very attractive DFS play this week.
Oh yeah. All right, so getting into the next one, just $100 less, you can get Mike Evans going against Atlanta, 6,500, averaging 14.6 DraftKings points. And yeah, I like this Tampa Bay receiving core. I like Brown, Godwin, Evans all this week, but I think Mike Evans is going to be my favorite one out of the three. And I'm really liking the Tom Brady Evans stack this week against the poor Falcons secondary. And just the prices of Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers in general, I think they're way too cheap this week. And like I said earlier, they had a poor week last week. I'm going right back to it. I think there's a ton of upside here against Atlanta.
Yeah, he's down to 5% owned this week against Atlanta. I think a little people are maybe discouraged with him because the last week wasn't the greatest week. But so that make him and Tom Brady very good plays this week for GPP. 5% owned, $6,500 salary at Atlanta.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be low. Yeah,
in a dome. What a beautiful place to play in this time of the year.
Oh yeah. All right, so getting into the next play here, we have Robert Woods going against the Jets, 6,800, averaging 16.5 DraftKings points. Fantastic matchup here against the Jets. Could see some big upside here in the Rams passing game, but the only thing I'm concerned about is if the Rams do get out ahead and they start running the ball. But to get out ahead, they have to score some touchdowns, and I could see some of the Rams wide receivers going off, Robert Woods especially being one of them at 6,800 against a really, really bad Jets defense. So I do think there's some serious upside there. And, yeah, I like it.
Fourth most owned wide receiver, 15%. So a lot of people agree with you on that one. It's kind of hard to not play players that are playing the Jets. And you know, with Cam Akers running like that, like you said, they're going to have to catch. They're going to have to. I don't know if they're going to start out running or if they're going to mix in the pass. That's the only thing you got to kind of worry about. Are they going to start running? But if they're going to start running that much, they'll probably have already scored some points. And Woods is a hard guy not to play here in Week 15, despite the 15% ownership.
Yes. And then, Brandon Cooks, I think, is a really solid play here as well. I think he's underpriced here. I think it's 6,000. And the matchup isn't great, but I do think he'll make up for it in volume. I remember, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I think it was like 5,600. Everybody rushed to play him. He only scored like 10 DraftKings points. And I still think there's some upside here. I think the matchup's not the greatest, but I think there's going to be a lot of volume, a lot of opportunities to score here. So I don't mind Brandon Cooks, and curious to hear the ownership. I'm assuming he's not that high on here.
Yeah, 7.5%. He's down, I'm just looking at it, around the 15th or so most owned wide receiver. So it's down a bit. That does sound, Indianapolis is playing well, but you got a very good quarterback, and it's a good play for Cooks right now.
I like it. And then I did want to throw out one last guy as kind of like a pump play, and it's going to be Denzel Mims going against the Rams. He is 3,500. And he's actually been solid so far this year, and it's not the best matchup in the world. It's actually probably the worst matchup in the world. But what I do like is the game script. They're going to be coming from behind. They're like 17-point underdogs, going to be passing the ball a ton, maybe some garbage time upside as well. And at 3,500, I do think there's some opportunity, especially maybe to find the end zone late in the game if they're like down 30 by that point. But I think Denzel Mims is really interesting at 3,500.
Oh yeah, that's a low salary. He's 3% owned, so nobody's really shooting on that one. And Perryman, his teammate, is also about 3% owned at $3,700. So yeah, Mims coming back. He's played very well after being injured early in the year as a rookie. That's an interesting play. That's a low salary at the Rams. Rams have got a good defensive front line, but that is an intriguing play for Mims, and people kind of forgotten about him after missing with family issues.
Oh yeah. And was there anybody else you wanted to throw out?
Well, I'll give you. Here's a couple very interesting things with Michael Thomas out and Breeze back. Yep. Emmanuel Sanders right now is the number one owned wide receiver at 18.8% at $4,200 salary.
Yes.
Which is a big number for Emmanuel Sanders to be number one owned. But 4,200, I think, is driving that. And I think the theory there is with Breeze back and Thomas out, there's probably going to be a receiver other than Alvin Kamara that may actually, make his salary worthy. And maybe, Sanders is a guy that people are thinking are going to do that. Now, I think Traquan Smith, let me see if I can type here. He's at 3,200. He's even lower salary. Of course, he's 4.4% owned. He's way down. But he's a real GPP guy because he's had a couple good games, but he can just do nothing, especially if they just throw it to Alvin Kamara. So I just thought I should bring those two kind of quirky scenarios up, and that's pretty much all the other ones I had at receiver we hadn't already covered. What do you think about those two guys?
I think they're way too cheap. So yeah, they're going to be high owned especially, but. Yeah, I like them. I think, especially if they're high on, I might not go there as much, but because, like you said, they're pretty inconsistent because, all the targets and stuff, they could go to Kamara and all that. But, yeah, I think just the price is going to draw a lot of people. I think they're fine.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if I'm going to play either one of them, but I thought it'd be important to tell the listeners that the ownership data on those two guys and the situation.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I had additionally at wide receiver.
Sweet. All right, so getting into the tight ends here, a couple I want to talk about. The first one being Mark Andrews going against Jacksonville, 5,500 for Andrews here, averaging 12 DraftKings points. And, Yeah, I really like the Jackson and Andrew stack this week. I'm sure a lot of people do as well. I love the matchup against the Jaguars. I love the price at 5,500, and he's not having like the season he did last year or nothing, but he's having an okay season, and I just think the matchup's good. And like I said, Lamar Jackson's finally coming into looking like Lamar Jackson. So hopefully he does well, and I really do like that stack this week.
Yeah, Andrews is he's a fourth owned tight end, 7.8%. They've just missed things this year. Drop passes, just missed, just out of the range, but they're hotter now. And what an incredible game it was, as we talked about earlier in the show. Maybe the emotions back, and things will change. It is a very tempting opportunity there to play Mark Andrews, and especially stack him up with Jackson. Very tempting.
Yep, I like it a lot this week. All right, so a couple $1,000 cheaper is Jordan Reed going against Dallas here, 3,200, averaging 7.9 DraftKings points. And I think he's way too cheap here going against a poor Dallas secondary. And he has been averaging around 5 targets the last 3 games. Just a nice punt tight end. And we saw him. He has the ability to have a good game. He had like a 2-touchdown game earlier in the year. And at 3,200, I do think there's some decent upside against this Dallas defense.
Yeah, that's a good play. He did score 12 points against Buffalo in Week 13. He only got 3 points last week against Washington. Let me go look at his salary. I just had to go take a look at that. That is an interesting play. I hadn't thought about that one. He is 2.4% owned. So very low ownership right there on Jordan Reed. And against Dallas.
Yeah, that's probably...
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I like that one. And then the last one I do want to touch on is I'm going to go back to it. Jordan Akins, 2,800, going against the Colts here. And last week, he was wide open for a touchdown. The sun was in his eyes, and he dropped it. He dropped 2 touchdowns on Thanksgiving. I mean, the opportunities are there. Like, we see the opportunities just catch the ball. So I actually think he's a solid play here, just way too cheap. And if he can catch like one of those touchdowns, he'll hit value and be a really good play. So the opportunity's there. He just has to catch the ball.
Yeah, back in Week 11, he scored 13 fantasy points. He hasn't caught a touchdown until Week 1, although, like you said, he's missed a lot of opportunities. It's an interesting play for him. It's frustrating. He is owned at 3.4%. He's about the top 9 owned tight ends. He's, like you said, they're throwing the ball to this guy. If things work for him, if he scores at least a touchdown, he's definitely worth a $2,800 salary. So,
yep.
All fingers crossed this week.
The opportunity's there. It's just the sun was in his eyes. Come on. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
it's
that
frustrating.
was frustrating, man.
Yeah. Was there any other tight end you want to throw out? Those are my
interesting.
probably 3 I'm looking at.
Like I said, Kyle Rudolph is out again, so Irv Smith is a guy who, you should consider. He's at 3,600. I don't know if that's gone up from the week before or not. He's just below Akins in ownership at 3.35%. So, and he's been scoring touchdowns. And what's interesting is the number 2 owned tight end this week is Cole Kmet for Chicago.
Yes.
Playing at Minnesota. 3,000 salary, 12.6% owned. So people are on this guy, or maybe for a good reason. 3,000 is still a fairly low salary. So those two guys are kind of things to think about. Yeah,
me and Kyle talked about Kmet on the Wednesday show. And, just way too cheap. He's been looking good. He's getting targets. So, I think Komet's a really good play, too.
So, those are the 2 I had at tight end to consider.
I like him. All right, then we'll touch on defense real quick. So, I think that the Rams, and I typically don't want to pay $4,500 for a defense, but it just seems like the best matchup possible against the Jets. They're like 17-point favorites at home. So I think the Rams, going up and paying for them, I think it's really safe this week. I think it's okay in cash. I think there's some solid tournament upside as well. Other than that, I think Seattle at 3,100 is a solid play going against Washington. I think that's fine. And then other than that, those are my top 2. I'll say Arizona against Philadelphia is not a bad look. Going against the Eagles' offense is not bad. But yeah, I'm probably paying up a defense. Typically, I'd pay down, and like all the options down low are not great. Like you got Jacksonville against Baltimore, New York Jets against the Rams. So I'm probably gonna pay up to like Seattle or the Rams for me this week.
Yeah, I see the issue. That is a frustrating one because it's fun to find some of those cheap plays. And Seattle's the number one owned defense at Washington, 15% owned. The Rams, the number two owned at 12% owned against the Jets, 4,500. Yeah, those are tough. Arizona is 7.3% owned against Philadelphia. So it's a little cheaper than those other ones. Those are tough. That's too bad. It's fun to find one of those dirt cheap defenses that happen to be playing a good matchup of potential turnovers. So I don't really see it myself. So it looks like we may have to pay a little more money this week to produce it as a defense.
Yeah, I mean, typically you can go down there and find at least something decent, but I don't know. I don't see nothing good down there this week. Maybe I don't know. Washington defense. I don't know. Like it's bad. So I'm definitely going to pay up.
Washington defense is a good defense now, but
they are.
Are they going to get turnovers against Russell Wilson? I don't really expect Russell Wilson to make too many mistakes in that game. So that's the problem with that. You're looking for the turnovers and potential scores, sacks. Again, something you don't really expect Russell Wilson to give up. So, Washington, and there's 2,600. They're relatively cheap, but I find it difficult to think they're going to have a big defensive game there. So that's another frustrating one.
Yeah. Well, that's about it for me. I think we touched on everything.
Yeah, excellent. So it should be fun. I've got a lot of notes here to go start getting my lineups in a little while here, so should be good. And good luck on your travels back home.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be back home. Florida.
Sadly.
Did you enjoy Florida?
Oh yeah, it was great. I'm not used to the warm weather here in December, so.
Yeah, how hot was it?
It was like 70, 75.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Better than 30 in Ohio, so.
All right, great show, and good luck getting your lineups in at the airport. And good luck today, and good luck for everybody watching the show.
All right, sounds good. Good luck.